Alright, now before you go into this video thinking that I'm just here to spout about how everything in the world is terrible, and that gaming has been ruined beyond compare ever since the 90s, please note that I actually don't dislike Undertale. Undertale does some actually pretty cool stuff that I think maybe a few more games nowadays need to do. But I don't think it's revolutionary or fantastic, I think it's like just good. And I think a lot of people really like it for really stupid, maybe just straight up wrong reasons. If I were to take the entire long video I'm about to make and churn it down to about 20 seconds, it's this. Basically, Undertale does some cool stuff and everybody needs to shut the fuck up about the skeletons. But to explain why I feel this way, let's review Undertale. Now, a few bits of information before we get into this review. By the time I record this, I should have probably replayed Undertale like 4 times after my main playthrough. And I also am going to be reviewing this game based primarily on the first playthrough I ever had, but also with information from repeat playthroughs as well. And unfortunately, I don't think at least 100% recreate my very first playthrough. Because Undertale is annoying and just couldn't be a normal fucking game. Fuck you, Peter Fox. Okay, now that I've wasted 1 minute of everybody's time, let's review the game. Now, Undertale is a very weird game to put into a genre, because it does like 4 different genres all at the same time. One of these 4 genres that the game occupies is an RPG, which is why we're looking at it today, because it's a weird one. It's maybe a little unfair to call this game any given genre. I think maybe we should just call it an Earthboundy, because that's kinda all it really is. This is basically the closest thing that you're going to get to an adventure game, because it doesn't really spend too much time being any kind of given game, except for like a bullet hell, I guess. Now, if any of you have ever watched my Fallout 4 review, you'll probably know that usually I review games by starting off at the very beginning of the game and then talking about stuff as we get to it. However, we're taking a detour from that philosophy so I can talk about the genre of Undertale. Now, if you've ever played Undertale, which if you hadn't, I don't know why the hell you're watching this video, you'll know Undertale is sort of like 3-4 genres all at once, but most of them don't really work. The only genre I would say Undertale does really well is the adventure game, because that's pretty much what this is sort of an adventure game without any exploration. One of the reasons I liked Undertale after my first playthrough was just the journey of it all. Undertale is the kind of game that's worth more than the sum of its parts by a long stretch, because the sum of Undertale's parts are undercooked. The 3 genres that Undertale sort of occupies all at the same time, or at least borrows from, I would say, are RPGs, puzzle games, bullet hells, and the adventure game. Now, the adventure game is certainly the best part of it, but let's talk about the other 3, because the other 3 are the uncooked ones. Now, mind you, I am not actually the person who originally told me the information that this game was all of these genres. The game was actually described as having these genres, or being a part of these genres, by a friend of mine who's probably going to comment on this video. So if you disagree that Undertale belongs to any of these genres, don't fight me, fight him. However, he does make a good point, and I can see where he's coming from when he describes this game as having borrowed things from these genres, because it kind of has. Now, Undertale does mix the 4 genres that I just talked about very well, however, none of them are really that great. Undertale took too little from too many genres without actually giving any substance to any of it, with the exclusion of the bullet hell genre, which actually gets a little bit of beef in this game. For an example of what I mean, I want to ask you the question, why are there RPG elements, if you can call them that, in Undertale? Why are there weapons and level ups? Like, I get the whole idea is that the more things you kill for your genocide run, the easier the game gets, so it attempts to, like, tempt you into killing things to make the game easier. But there's so little RPG elements in this that I really don't get why it's there in the first place, and why you couldn't have just done something different. I'm being totally genuine when I say I have no idea why Undertale has weapons, armor, and leveling up. If the point was to make the game easier by killing things, to make it so that genocide runs are a little bit better for people who aren't willing to put in the work, the idea of, like, seducing the player over to what's easy, even if it's not a very good way to do things, is a really cool idea, but I don't see why Toby Fox couldn't have accomplished this exact same thing in some other different way that didn't involve shoehorning in RPG elements, or maybe better described as the backbones of RPG elements into Undertale, which, let's make this clear, is not an RPG. One of the bigger underlying themes of Undertale is kind of morality, which I'll talk about later because it doesn't really, in my opinion, work in this game, but nevertheless it's there. And having better weapons and armor and leveling up doesn't play into this at all. Now, I'm a very pretentious individual who thinks he knows everything, so here's my solution for this. Basically, why didn't Toby Fox just make it so that with every monster that you killed in the game, and every major character that you killed as well, have it so that enemies become more and more scared of the player and deal less damage, or just sometimes try to run away from them, or make it so that the player can absorb more health by saying that you, like, eat their souls or some crap. I mean, having them, like, react and run away and be scared of you would also help the game feel like it has more attachment to this whole morality thing it's going for. Make you feel like you're actually not a very good person when things start to actually react affect what you do. Also, describing this game as a puzzle game is kind of silly. Like, yeah, there's puzzles in it, but there's also puzzles in Legend of Zelda. That doesn't make Legend of Zelda a puzzle game. And lastly, there's the bullet hell genre, which I actually agree with. The bullet hell part of this game is easily the most fleshed out and varied part of the gameplay, and it's really kind of neat. I wouldn't say it's really that deep or good, but it is at least functional, and it's varied enough to make it feel like it wasn't just added in at the last second or just added in for the sake of having it. And with that out of the way, let's actually play the game. Okay, so the moment we start up the game, we're given a little bit of a prologue sequence kind of thing, a little bit of a cutscene sort of deal, that explains the very basic backstory of Undertale. Basically, there were monsters and humans, and then there was a war. It's not a very deep or interesting backstory, but it's also not very important, so we're just gonna skip over it. We're told that our character has fallen down some kind of hole and has entered the Underrealm. More specifically, the ruins of the Underrealm. This is where we start off the game proper, where we're actually in the ruins, we've fallen down, we can see the little shaft of light that we're occupying, and then we take a small walk until we meet the biggest rat and disappointment in this whole game. Now, I'll get into Flowey later, because there's something much more interesting happening on the screen right now, which is the tutorial, and also one of the greater strengths of Undertale. That strength being the seamless, if not very subtle, blending of game mechanics and story. Undertale is one of a few games that actually makes its game mechanics part of the story. Now, I say it's not very subtle because the game is basically just straight up recognizing that it is a game without any kind of hiding or anything to do with that. The game literally makes the player part of the world because it recognizes that it itself is a game and doesn't do anything in the universe to try to hide that or subvert it. It literally takes you, the player, and every element about the game that is like the game, you know, the HUD and all that stuff, and makes it something that's in the universe. And Undertale's weird world is so strange and nonsensical that you can kind of believe it. Just a minute ago, I talked about some things that Undertale did really well that other games need to do. This is very certainly one of them, and there's a couple more that we'll get into, but this is one of the big ones. And before I continue, understand that this doesn't exactly work for every game, and it really doesn't have to. You can make whatever game you want. But as far as an art game is concerned, if you're trying to go out and make a game that you want to be considered art in this medium, I would say that this is actually something you kind of need to do. The topic of art in video games is a very touchy one, and one I'm not going to be touching on in this video, but let me just say that this seamless blending of gameplay and story makes it such an immersive and artistically sound experience that you kind of can't at least acknowledge the strengths this has as an art video game. Remember, you're not making a movie here. Simply just telling a story isn't going to make you an art game. Making it so that the player is somehow able to edit and be a part of your story, that's what makes it an art game. And Undertale's lack of giving a shit about the fourth wall actually allows it to perform this perfectly. If you want another good example, look at something like Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons. In that game, you basically have one control option, and you use that to perform every action in the game. And every action that you perform in the game is every action that the brothers perform on their journey. And the control scheme in that game is done so well and so perfectly that you not only have absolute control over both brothers, but you actually get some feelings of gameplay when you're playing that game. When the brothers would be struggling with something that's physically exhausting, it has some kind of weird, exhausting controller thing too. When they hurt, your thumbs start to hurt. But not only that, every single action or talking or anything that the brothers do, the player has to do. Just like Undertale, it seamlessly blends gameplay and the narrative, and it's fantastic. Like, this whole thing is easily the greatest strength of Undertale, is the fact that it just doesn't give a shit about anything and just acknowledges the fact that it itself is a video game, and it just runs with this concept. And in doing so, it becomes one of the most immersive experiences ever, because it actually takes you as a player, acknowledges you are playing a video game, and puts that into the universe. And it works with the rules of the universe because there are not any rules. However, I don't think this works for every game mechanic. And actually, I think Flowey's initial discussion about the game mechanics being a part of the story and his little tutorial he gives you kind of thing is the worst example of showcasing this. He's literally just like, oh, these are extermination pellets or friendliness pellets or some crap, and that thing down there is your love meter. And again, I have to ask, why is there a love meter? Why are there friendliness pellets? He does, however, at least indirectly explain that this stuff hurts you, which is good enough, I guess. Even though he doesn't explain why it hurts you, it just does. The one part about his little monologue I do like, however, is the soul being your heart. Your soul getting hurt in a magical universe like this, that makes sense. People understand that hearts have something to do with liveliness. Makes sense both out of the universe and in the universe that you are getting hurt here. And it works because, again, the game acknowledges that it's a game and that games have stuff like this, so it just gives it a reason to work. And it works because there's no rules that say it shouldn't work, because the world of Undertale is fantastic. Anyway, we get attacked by Flowey because he's a piece of shit. Toriel comes out and blasts him and tells us she'll take us through the ruins and guide us and not get us hurt at all. Now, for the sake of accuracy, I am going to be recreating my first time playthrough for Undertale, because there's a point it allows me to make that I need to make at the end of this game. To this end, we're going to be killing 2 things, and not killing anything else, but we will be talking about genocide and pacifist runs later on, don't worry. We talk to or fight a dummy, and Toriel reacts appropriately, and then we go through a couple of, puzzles, if you can call it that, in what might be the most infuriating sequence in this entire game. If you guys know who I am, you'll know I fucking hate hand-holding, and this quite literal hand-holding sequence made me want to bash my head through a window. Then the oh-so-loving Toriel decides to let us test our independence by walking to the end of a room. It was at this point that the part of my brain that manages patience exploded. Toriel then gives us a cell phone. Again, further punctuating the fact that this world makes no sense. Okay, now pay attention, because this next information is very fucking important. Now, for the purposes of this review, I stated earlier we were going to be recreating my first ever run, because there's some things I want to talk about when doing so. The footage you're about to see is going to be of my first run, and it's going to consist of these changes. We are going to kill 1 creature, and we are going to kill Toriel. Nothing else. I will be talking about genocide and pacifist runs later, but for now we're just going to go with this neutral run. Remember when I said this video was going to be long? Yeah, this is what I mean. We're going to play the game 3 freaking times. So after Toriel gives us so much player freedom, we walk through a small room in the ruins without her help, complete a few puzzles, and we kill a monster. A single monster. On our way back to Toriel, we eventually meet Napstablock, who's our first kind of mini-boss encounter, and another good example of how Undertale has no rules. Again, one of the cool things about Undertale is that it makes no sense, and it shows because it doesn't even give a shit about its own rules. You expect things in this box to be going towards you in a bullet hell style fashion, but Napstablock here just has text. We go through a couple more rooms of puzzles, if you can call them that, and even more monsters, and I have to say, the ruins are actually one of my least favorite places in all of Undertale. Because a lot of the puzzles in the ruins aren't really that interesting, they usually just end up in you having to backtrack somewhere. It's just a lot of time wasting that I really can't get behind, but it's a small gripe. And an even smaller gripe would be the fact that I swear to God, this place has more random encounters than any other location in the game. Maybe I'm just unlucky, but every time I go through here, I have to, like, stop every 10 seconds to fight or spare something. But eventually we make it to the outside of Toriel's house. We're going to take a quick detour and pick up the toy knife, which is some cool little foreshadowing for later on in the game. Eventually we reunite with Toriel, she takes us into her home, and we take a nap. If you've beaten the game, you'll know there's a lot more to it than all of this, but on the surface, that's all that's happening here. Eventually, we get Toriel to tell us how to go home, which takes us into her basement and into our first boss fight with her. Now again, for the validity of the footage, we are going to kill Toriel. And after we do so, she tries to warn us about Asgore. Now setting up Asgore as our big enemy is kind of a cool idea, because we all know that Asgore isn't actually evil, so him being who he is in the game would be quite a little bit of a surprise, wouldn't it? Problem is, we don't even get enough time to go out and ask other people what they think of Asgore out in the real world of the monsters, because right after Toriel's boss fight, we get to meet Flowey. This is our second meeting with Flowey. We already know we don't like him. And now that we know that he's a recurring character, it's pretty obvious that he's gonna play some kind of role in the game. And I mean, it's quite clear that he's the bad guy for this. I mean, he's got an evil, creepy laugh, an evil, creepy face. He goes around telling everybody that he's gonna kill everybody. It's just not giving off good vibes. The problem is that we never get any time to talk about Asgore at all, or learn if he's actually evil or not before we're introduced to the guy who is quite clearly the bad guy. Toby Fox sets up a plot twist that never gets any time to be deflated. It's like a balloon. You just immediately pop it right after the kid gets it. But anyway, we eventually walk through a door and into Snowdin. Before we go to Snowdin, however, there's one thing I gotta talk about, and it's the damn music in this game. Oh lord, that is some good chiptune. Like seriously, fucking listen to some of this. damn, that is some good music. Now, I have no say in what does or doesn't get an award for best games this year, but Undertale certainly has the best soundtrack of any game I've played all year. That is some good shit. But we can't dwell on the music forever, we got a whole game to play. After we talk to Flowey, we walk through a small path leading into the area around Snowden, and we meet two skeleton men. Sans and Papyrus, everybody's favorite characters. Now, Sans and Papyrus bring up a very good, topic that we're gonna talk about. As many of you know, the community for Undertale is a little bit, interesting. We're gonna go with interesting, that's nice. And as unfair as it is to talk about the community for a single-player game, because, you know, the developers have nothing to do with it, I kinda have to. Basically, all I have to say is this.
Stop! Stop it! Stop that right now! You stop! Don't do that shit here, you stop! I wanna see that shit in my house. You take that and you go away with it. You fucking stop! I swear to God!
Now, Undertale's community is not the only thing that Sans and Papyrus bring to mind. Now that we've observed multiple of them, let's start talking about Undertale's characters. And when I say characters, I mean the main characters, not the monsters and stuff. I'm talking about people like Undyne and Papyrus and stuff like that. And I gotta say, I don't think I like them as much as everybody else. In fact, I would go so far as to say that the only good thing about the characters in Undertale is the dialogue. Like, the dialogue for these characters is very well written. I'll admit, it's pretty good. It's very endearing, it's funny, it's good. But most of the characters themselves are kind of cliched and boring. Mind you, all of this is excluding Flowey. I'll get to him later. But yeah, a lot of Undertale's characters feel like stuff I've seen before. Like, especially Undyne. She's like the overly prideful, overly strong, overly has to prove everybody wrong person. Alphys is like just a dork who's also a scientist. Sans is the seemingly innocent, playful person who has a dark secret. Very common stuff that borderlines on just being a trope. The worst example of them all, however, is my least favorite character in the entire game. Chara. Chara is quite literally just evil Frisk. That's it. It's just evil main character. That's the whole thing. That you're done. You don't have to explain anymore. That's it. That's all there is to it. Overly evil just for the sake of being overly evil, despite the fact that Flowey already fits that role. And I have to say, I am at least glad that Chara exists, because it makes it very easy on all the fanfiction writers who would have just written this character in anyway. Like, no, seriously, I have a feeling Chara's entire existence is just to give some depth to the game, and to try to push this weird message that Undertale has going for it that I'll get to later. But, like, seriously, Chara is just so stupid. I can't not even wrap my head around why it exists. Never create a character just to add depth to a story, I'm just saying. Like, seriously, what other role does Chara provide other than to destroy the world upon the end of the genocide run, and to just add depth to the story to make it so that things that happened in the game are also associated with things that happened to her before the game started? Like, if you know, tell me, because I looked this shit up and I can't find an answer. And after we complete a few more puzzles, we find our way to the first town, Snowden. After we take a trip through Snowden and do whatever we need to do, we get our second boss battle with Papyrus. Papyrus is the first boss that I know of who utilizes a new bullet hell mechanic in the form of blue objects. These blue objects highlight just how much Undertale has actually put into its bullet hell system, in the sense that it constantly changes exactly how it works. It's not incredibly complex or anything, but there's a lot of variety to how it works. Sometimes it makes you shield things, sometimes it tells you not to move, sometimes it tells you that you have to move, sometimes it becomes a little bit of a shooter sort of thing. There's just a lot of wacky zaniness to it, and it's a lot of fun. It's more fun than anything else in Undertale, in my opinion. After the fight with Papyrus, Undertale allows you to go on one of its many dates. These date scenes are basically just little story sequences where we actually get to learn a little bit more about the characters we're interacting with. Not much to say about them, it just gives the game some time to explain the characters a little better. I like them at least a little bit because they at least give me a break from actually having to play the game. Because, frankly, repeatedly playing this game sucks. I'm just being honest, playing through this game multiple times is so repetitive and boring. Like, after you do a genocide run, a pacifist run to get the true quote-unquote ending, and a neutral run, there's basically nothing to see. Every other change that the game makes for every little minute thing you do is just not worthy of another playthrough. Like, Undertale has a lot of charm to it, and a lot of novelty, but charm and novelty only last so long. A dead smart guy once said that brevity was the soul of wit. And frankly, even in between pacifist and neutral runs, this shit gets old. I mean, is all I'm saying. It gets old quick. I don't even remember how many playthroughs at this point. Of Undertale that I've done, the only one I really enjoyed redoing was the genocide run, because that was actually different from all the other ones. In a significant enough way to make it feel like this is its own unique playthrough. But even in the genocide run, you have to do a shit ton of grinding grinding to kill all the monsters, so it still sucks. Maybe if Undertale had some kind of like random generation or something to make it so different playthroughs had more to them, that would have been cool. Or if it just had more game and more of it was locked away on a playthrough by playthrough basis, then that might be cool too. But Undertale just doesn't have enough stuff in it to justify multiple playthroughs beyond the first 3. I don't think I have genuinely had the feeling of dragging myself through a game as much as this. I absolutely loathe recording this.
Fuck you, Toby Fox.
And while we're on the page of griping, it doesn't help that Undertale is the loudest fucking game ever made. And I would love to turn the game down, but something everybody seems to have forgotten is that Undertale doesn't have an options menu. Like, is there an options menu? Have I just not discovered it? I played the game for 17 hours. I just checked my Steam. I played this for 17 hours of my life. I still can't find the fucking options menu. Did that little factoid just kind of go under the radar? That this game, in 2015, the current last year, did a game like this go without an options menu? It is to my understanding that Toby Fox made the game in Game Maker Studio, okay? Now, in light of this, I decided I would try to learn a little bit more about Game Maker Studio. Maybe there's something I don't know here. Maybe it really is impossible to make an options menu in Game Maker Studio. Turns out it fucking is! Here's the code. Here's the very small string you need. And you can set this to any action that you want. You can literally just have the fucking keyboard. Hear that? That's my keyboard. You can just fucking have a button press to make the game fucking quieter.
Fuck you, Toby Fox.
Anyway. After we deal with Papyrus in whichever way you manage, we transition over to the next area, and we get to have another one-to-one with Sans, who is very quickly becoming the character with the most screen time. Most likely because Toby Fox really wanted to make the twist at the end of the Genocide run something special. Then we head into what is personally my favorite area in Undertale. I like the waterfall area so much because it just has a nice, what's that word? Atmosphere, that's it. Let's take a second to talk about atmosphere in Undertale. Let me first clarify that I don't actually dislike the atmosphere in Undertale. It is very well done for what it is. But maybe it's just me, but some parts of it, I don't know, it just feels a little, cheap. I don't know how else to say, it feels gamey, I don't know. Here, let me explain. Basically, when I was playing Undertale, I guess I kind of saw through it, if you will. I saw how the atmosphere worked and achieved what it did, and I don't know, maybe it just cheapened the whole experience for me. Undertale's atmosphere is all over the place. Most of the time it's innocent or cheeky, but sometimes it can be kind of scary or threatening, or it can be funny. Sometimes it can be sad. Sometimes it can be happy. I'm not saying it doesn't achieve all of these things, it certainly does, it's just the way that it does it. It just didn't work for me. What I'm talking about is most of the time Undertale's world is kind of innocent and funny. It feels quirky and innocent and feels safe, like you're not really going to get hurt or scared by anything in this game. It's got the simple pixelated graphics and the upbeat music and all the funny jokes, so it builds this atmosphere of something that is very, very innocent. And this atmosphere is maintained so heavily for the first parts of the game that anything that deviates from this even in the slightest, anything that's even just slightly creepy, feels far creepier than it normally would. I mean, just compare our first encounters with Undyne and Papyrus. With Papyrus, we start off by hearing him talk about his aspirations and yell at his brother, and everybody's making puns in this nice little snowy field, and there's dogs everywhere. Everything's real happy. Then for Undyne, she chases us around in the dark with a spear, and a helmet that looks like a skull. Just something as simple as having more pure black pixels everywhere, and giving our antagonists a kind of creepy little armor piece. The game feels a lot more threatening than normally you would probably feel from any other game. Most games achieve this kind of atmosphere just by being a horror game and making it so you just can't fight the monster. So yeah, in short, Undertale's atmosphere isn't bad, it's just, I don't know, a little transparent. I wasn't spending that much time being threatened as much as I was thinking about how this works. I don't know, maybe it's just me, I don't know. Then again, this is my review, so... Ha. After the aforementioned encounter with Undyne, we get knocked down into the dump. Toby Fox takes a second to do some foreshadowing, which is something Undertale really likes to do. And we get our second mini-boss in the form of the Angry Dummy, who, once again, shows that Undertale's bullet hells are really, really varied. Again, breaking the rules. After we defeat him, or I guess after we have his lackeys help us defeat him indirectly, you know what I mean. Napstabloot comes in, and being just the ruthless murderer that he is, he defeats the Mad Dummy and sends it packing. Then we go back to his house, and this shit happens. Yeah, that's weird. We progress to a few more locations, encounter Undyne a few more times until we finally get to fight her. By the way, normal Undyne fight is my favorite one, because I like the music. And again, she shows off how varied Undertale's bullet hell mechanics can be. And again, for the sanctity of the footage, we are going to spare Undyne, but we are not going to give her the water. We're just going to continue on without her and move on to Hotland. Once we're in Hotland, we meet two new characters, Alphys and Metaton, who is everybody's third favorite character because it has legs. I'm fucking serious. Mettaton forces us to take a little quiz, and then Alphys gives us a new phone with texting capabilities, which transitions us into the worst fucking sequence in this entire game. Like, seriously, just look how many times the gameplay gets stopped in this. Fuck you, Toby Fox. Lucky for us, however, it does transition into my favorite sequence in the game. This bullet hell sequence here, that's what I'm talking about. Thank you, Toby Fox. After the little bullet hell extravaganza, we're met with there's more texting. Okay. Eventually, the ceaseless agony of texting stops, and we get to do a puzzle on our own without any interruptions. And then after that oh god damn it! Eventually, the texting stops and we get to fight the next mini-boss. The two guards is what I was gonna say. Oh, who am I kidding? I was gonna say faggots. Because we're a decently nice guy, we help one of them get over their shyness and ask the other one out. I don't know why, but I actually really like this little ending speech here. It just feels, I don't know, genuine. Something about it's just nice. Rests good on the heart. Once we're done taking care of the lovers in arms, we take an elevator out of Hotland and we're confronted by Mettaton again. And I have to say, the Mettaton sequences are actually, they're kind of my favorite, because they're all zany and just fun. A lot of good writing behind a lot of unique nonsense, and it's all just a good experience, in my opinion. Breaks up the repetition. Then we fight the next boss, who is just genuinely the worst character in the game. I mean, it's a spider. How can anybody realistically support this? How can you not hate this character? It's literally a pest. I'll bet you $20 anybody who supports this character, they're a real spider. They're just a spider on the internet. It's like a straight up tarantula on a keyboard. Why else would they like a spider? Think about it. After our fight with Muffet, we get another cutscene with Mettaton, and I have to say, I think Undertale kinda overuses cutscenes. There's a lot of cutscenes in this game, or cutscene-like sequences where you think you have player freedom, but you really don't. Luckily, a lot of this is infused with dialogue, and the dialogue is funny. But personally, I think Undertale takes away control from the player a little too much. I think that's kind of what contributes to my disdain for repeating this game. Because, like, these cutscenes are cool the first time around because you get to see the dialogue and the characters and stuff. But after a while, you kind of want to skip it because you know what's going to happen and you know what's going on, and it's just sort of wasting your time. See, this is why I kind of like some of the encounters with Sans, because you can just skip over it, like this one, which we're not going to skip over, because it's the first real instance of something being awry with Sans. Please take note of this instance here, this little cutscene, because this is going to be important later. Study up. Normally from here we would progress to the Mettaton fight proper, but we're going to take a second to talk about something that Undertale does really well. I told you we were going to talk about this at the beginning of the video, and here we are. One of the things that Undertale does, whether or not you think it does it well or it does it enough, one of the things that it just does, which should be worthy of commendation in this day and age, unfortunately, is it allows you, in certain instances, to think outside of the box. Undertale allows you to think of situations or solutions to problems that you may not have even thought of to be part of the rules. As an example of what I'm talking about, of allowing a player to truly think their way out of a situation, let's look at the Undyne fight, which is my favorite example of it. For those of you who don't know, in Undyne's normal neutral fight, the only way to passively defeat her is to actually run away from the encounter. And this is a boss battle, mind you. To my knowledge, every other JRPG, and even in Undertale, 90% of the time you can't run away from an encounter like this. And you might be saying that it's a little cheap that the rules just suddenly changed for this encounter, and normally you would be right, but here's the thing, the game actually indirectly tells you that this can happen. The game just tells you that while you're green, you can't escape. The game allows you to figure that out for yourself and doesn't force you to do another spare puzzle. And unlike Toriel's fight, it doesn't explicitly tell you what to do. Another example is when Alphys is telling you where to go in the core, you can completely ignore her and go wherever you want. Another example, albeit one that's a little bit more obvious to the player because it's explicitly stated out what you should do, is during Toriel's fight where you actually have to attack and specifically miss. You have to purposefully miss her to spare her. Again, that one's a little bit less of an example because the game tells you exactly what to do, but still, I count it because I love this kind of stuff in video games. Allowing players to figure out ways to deal with problems that aren't something the developer explicitly developed and is like a path or like a quest branch or something. is absolutely fantastic. I absolutely love it when stuff like this pops up in video games, and it's one of the reasons I really need to go and play the Stanley Parable. I know that it's basically impossible to think of every single possible situation that a player could come up with unless you have another person sitting right there controlling the game. And of course, there are games that have attempted to do something like this by allowing for things like quests to be done in a variety of different ways. But there's a serious difference between something that's like a branching quest path and like a quest that just gives you an example and lets you do literally anything with it. Imagine, if you will, you're playing an RPG and you get a quest where you're told to kill somebody, and instead you try to pay them off to get them to just leave the country. And it works. How cool would that be? And unfortunately, with a lot of games that I have played, that is just simply not the case. Very unfortunately, because I love this stuff. It feels like you're figuring out a puzzle, or that you thought of something that the developer never even thought of, even if it's in the game. Just the fact that it's not explicitly given to you as an objective or as an option is what makes it feel so personal. It makes it feel cool. It's one of the reasons I think a lot of people like stuff like PlanetSide 2 or like Battlefield. Because say, you know, the enemy, they've hidden up in a bunker. Normal single-player game has you go into the back of the bunker and you kill everybody with a machine gun. In Battlefield, you could just crash a fucking helicopter into it. PlanetSide, you can go in with like a cloak field or some shit, or like, and you can just shoot everybody in the back. That's literally all I ever did in PlanetSide 2. And that kind of stuff feels great, because it feels like something that you did, that you figured that out, that you accomplish it, that it's you who did that stuff. It's all you, baby. And even stuff like just not taking orders from Alphys in the rooms feels nice, because it feels like you can do anything you want in a game. As an RPG player, an open-world RPG player at that, player freedom is one of the things I absolutely love in video games. That is one of the big draws for video games for me. And while I do appreciate linear games, don't get me wrong, I love the hell out of Metro Last Light and stuff like Half-Life. Things like these little instances in Undertale, I just absolutely love it. These little examples, I guess we can call them. Just the act of letting a player do what they want and figure stuff out for themselves can lead to all kinds of crazy war stories, as people call them. You know, those awesome, unique moments in games that weren't set up and they don't look like somebody thought of it before you did and you're just acting out something that was already pre-built. Something like the time somebody kited a world boss across the entire half of the World of Warcraft world into one of the two biggest cities in the game and had to get the server reset because the boss destroyed everything. Stuff like that is awesome. And while normally multiplayer games kind of have this down to a science, because, you know, the developers aren't going to sit there and dictate how you have fun, unless you're Blizzard, more single-player games, and especially more RPGs, need to take a hint. Maybe that means making RPGs that have fewer quests in them, but with more variety to them all, and more options to do them. Maybe that's what it takes. But games have got to let you figure it out for yourself nowadays. It's not even a matter of, like, hand-holding or anything, it's just a matter of coming up with a solution that is all your own. And the fact that Undertale just has these little bits and pieces inside of it that have this kind of stuff is one of the things I absolutely love about it. And with all that said, let's finally get to Mettaton's fight. Mettaton's fight is very much similar to all the other ones. It introduces a new mechanic to the fighting, blah blah blah, except this time it doesn't actually introduce a new bullet hell mechanic. Mettaton's fight actually introduces a new mechanic to the sort of almost puzzle game that is the sparing sequences, which is kinda nice. It's just a number that goes up based on what you do, but the fact that it's just different from all the other ones makes it a really unique thing first time around. Then it's really fun to just boast every round and never get hit, which I did once, and I didn't record it, because I'm fucking stupid. Once we're done with Mettaton's fight, we get a, I don't know, guess, rear shadowing sequence? Where instead of, like, foreshadowing, it goes back and shows how something was foreshadowed. You get what I mean. Basically, Toriel and Asgore have the same house set up, because, you know, they were an ex-couple. You know. And normally this would be really cool. Here's the problem I have with it, though, is that it leads into one of the most egregious examples of exposition in fucking anything. Which sucks, because it's one of the worst ways to tell a story, because you're literally just telling a story. And considering right before it is a sequence where we go through the house of someone we already know, but it's not their house, and we see the parallels, but also the differences of these two people and how they're connected in some way is so much better. Because a lot of the stuff about Asgore that we can learn from just his house are optional, and we can explore it for ourselves. But this is literally just a big text dump that you have to read, because you can't skip past this text or these battles in any way, and you gotta do it, because this is the only way to Asgore, and you gotta get to Asgore to beat the game. But it's not really that important, because next up is fucking Asgore, and I love Asgore's, just everything about this initial Asgore thing is fantastic, because it just goes from highs to lows back to highs again. We've been told before that Asgore is some kind of threatening, almost monster-like creature who wants to break the barrier. He's been killing humans. He acts like some kind of awful person. We think he's a monster. I mean, he is a monster, but, I mean, You know what I mean. You're not stupid. And when we see him, he's not threatening at all. He's like a big cuddly bear. He's just a big dad-like figure. He's so nice, and he's talking about the good day, and it's a good game of catch. But it's also kind of sad, because we know we have to either kill him or be killed to get out of here. And losing means that not only would we die, but all the humans would get attacked, so we kind of can't lose. So we know we kind of have to kill him. And he knows this too because he breaks the spare button. He breaks our mercy button, which again, making gameplay part of your story. This little cutscene here where Asgore destroys the mercy button is so damn cool. Because instead of him sitting there and explaining about it has to be this way and he's so sorry or something like that, or some kind of monologue or some crap, he just breaks her mercy button and you know instantly what that means and what that means to him and why he's doing it. Not only that, but it makes Asgore seem more threatening now because he's actually threatening. He's tilted his head down, he's got his spear out, and he broke your only method of dealing with him peacefully or running away. This is a fight, and you know it. Asgore went from evil Hitler man to nice dad dude to it has to be this way. Threatening, stoic warrior leader, and I absolutely love everything about his fight too. Remember how I said Undyne's fight was my favorite? I lied. I lied to you. I'm so sorry, but I lied. You can't trust me. I lied to you. Asgore's music is so much better, and the fight is so damn cool. And please, write this down. It's going to come up later. And by later, I mean now. At the end of Asgore's fight, after we've defeated him in this battle to the end, we're finally about to kill him and end the game, and Flowey ruins it. Okay, first off, rule 1. Rule 1. Do not steal a player's kill. That shit needs to end. That shit happened with Garrosh and Warlords of Draenor, and I swear to God, if it happens in another game, I will throw my monitor out a brick window. Those of you might be wondering, MisterCaption, what's a brick window? It's the hole I make when I throw my monitor out of the brick wall! Not only does this piss me off, but it's so unsatisfying to have a boss get killed by another person who isn't us after we spend all the time fighting it. However, that's not the worst thing about Flowey, okay? Let me explain to you why I don't like Flowey and Chara from earlier. This is now the rant portion of the video where I get really angry and I start throwing stuff out the window. That's what this is. I'm just gonna flat out say it. Flowey is a shit character. He is. Fuck you. He's a shit character. He's fucking stupid. I'm going to make the assumption, alright, that pretty much almost everybody who hadn't heard about what Undertale is before they play it probably got a neutral run, okay? I'm gonna assume that. Because most people aren't going to know the exact requirements for the genocide run on their first playthrough, and I'm going to assume people probably kill at least one monster, accidentally or whatever, on their first playthrough, okay? I'm just going to assume that. In the neutral run, Flowey's character is the stupidest fucking thing in the game. He is absolutely terrible. He is completely inhuman, one-dimensional, and lacks any development whatsoever. It is so bad. If you're doing a neutral run on your first, you may as well just be fighting Hitler, okay? Because that's all Flowey is on a neutral run. He's just Hitler. It is what he is. He's Hitler. There is absolutely nothing redeemable about Flowey. There is no reason to like Flowey. Let's contrast this with every other boss in the game. Toriel is a very motherly figure who protects us and is only trying to get us not killed. That's why she's stopping us. Papyrus is a dope who's completely incapable and is only stopping us because he wants to impress all his friends and to finally be useful to someone in his life. Not only that, but he's also funny and he's willing to work with the player. He doesn't even kill you if you lose to him. He just puts you in your garage that you can easily get out of. He even bothers to help you with one of his puzzles if you're stumped. Undyne is an initially very threatening character. But right off the bat, she appears to be a friend of Papyrus, who, if you leave alive, you already know is not exactly the worst person in the world. Not only that, but the kid who follows you through the waterfall keeps talking very positively about her, and acting like an adoring fan of some description. And when you're fighting her, it's very clear she is very interested in the safety of the people of the underground. And she's only attacking you either because you already killed people, or because she wants to see the monsters flourish in the overworld. And even when you're fighting her, you can get her to remember a friend of hers. And if all this wasn't enough, it's clear that she's very tenacious, and she's loyal to the people she loves, and she does love them. She has friends here, and she cares about the people of the underground, who we already know we shouldn't be hurting them. That is something the neutral one makes very clear. It's something the entire game makes very clear. It's one of the big things about Underworld, is that it challenges whether or not we should just go around killing monsters in RPGs. Then we fight Mettaton, who initially seems like an insane person, okay? It seems like just a killer robot who's out to kill people. But if you pay attention to the stuff he does, you realize people adore Mettaton. The people of the underground really like Mettaton, and at the end of the fight with Mettaton, if you don't kill him, it's very obvious that that's the case. People like Mettaton because he's a performer, because he's the idol of the underground. People like him. People adore him, and he's only doing what he does to you to give them a good show, which I think everybody can understand. Not only that, but if you leave him alive, you'll realize he's not such a bad person. Even during his fight, he just questions if you think you're strong enough to actually take out Asgore. There's an amount of concern to that, because it's a very important event. And then we fight Asgore, who we've already talked about. He parallels with Toriel. He seems like he's a dad. He's obviously a dad. We already know he's a dad. We know his son's whole damn backstory. We just got expositioned it for like 5 minutes. He even says it was nice to meet us when we fight him, right before we fight him and he destroys the Mercy Bar. In the neutral run, every single one of these bosses has a reason for you to like them. Whether it's a good one or not, there's a reason for you to do so. There's a logical, rational reason you should not kill every single one of these characters. Or at least that you should not want to kill them, because people like them. People adore these characters, and you start to like them as well. These characters aren't all amazing, they're pretty cliched, but they're at least somewhat deeper than a puddle, alright? There's things to them. They have flaws and positive traits. They're all good characters. You have a reason for not liking every one, and you have a reason to like every single one of them. Not Flowey. Not Flowey. Not Flowey. The entire game, you only see Flowey twice, and both times, one time he tries to kill you, and the other time he just talks about how you should go around killing everybody. It's kill or be killed in this world. This is punctuated in his boss fight with his stupid fucking Sega CD graphics monster and his dumbass laugh. Which also contributes to my next point, that Flowey is not threatening for good reasons, and this is one I wanted to get into. As we have already discussed, I think Flowey and Chara are bad characters. Chara is literally just evil fucking Frisk, and Flowey is the spawn of Hitler, okay? But, at least Toby Fox could work with this. He could make them threatening through dialogue, or through minute little changes, or he could make them spooky and scary in whatever subtle ways like he's done throughout the rest of the game. I mean, look at Sans and Asgore. Asgore literally just tilts his head down a little bit and brings out a spear, and all Sans does is remove his eyes. Apparently not Flowey, though. No, Flowey has to have a stupid fucking Photoshop monster try-hard, gotta scare the little kids fucking thing here with his stupid fucking maniacal face and his dumbass laugh track. And all Chara has is a fucking jump scare with a melty face and flashing colors. That's it. That is so dumb. Here, let me contrast this with another game series, with a villain that everybody fucking hates because of how stupid he is. You guys ever heard of Metal Gear Solid? I'll bet you have. It's a pretty famous name in the gaming world. Let me give you an example of another instance of this happening and why it's stupid. In Metal Gear Solid 3 and in a couple of other games, there's an antagonist to the main character called the Boss. The Boss is a character you're generally going to like because it's a very motherly character. She actually genuinely cares about the safety of Snake, who's you. But she's also threatening because she very often strips the player of almost all of their power, which is something no other enemy in the game does except for the final boss. And even then, in one of the instances of the final boss doing that, the Boss, that's her name, that's the character's name, is there. She's present, and she was a part of it. CQC is something that's very important in that game for taking out enemies stealthily. It's a stealth game, as you probably know, and the boss out-CQCs the player multiple times, which is something none of the normal enemies or even most of the other bosses do. Not only does she out-CQC us, but she also just takes our gun apart multiple times. The boss is threatening not because she's got some fucking fire hair or something, or for some stupid scary jump scares. She's threatening because of the things she does, because of the actions she does against us that make her seem more powerful than we are. It makes it seem like a more formidable opponent because we haven't been able to even touch her at all through all of the times we've encountered her. And it's not until the end of that game do we even get the chance to fight her. Let's contrast this with a villain from the game's predecessor and successor, Vamp. Vamp is unlikable, not because he's threatening, or because he's powerful, or any of that shit. Vamp is unlikable because he's fucking just evil, and nothing else. He's just fucking evil, and unlikable, and smarmy, and a freaking dick about everything, and it's punctuated by the fact that he has a fucking stupid-ass penis knife. He literally has a knife, holstered over his dick, okay? That is fucking stupid. You know what the boss has? The boss has like a jumpsuit that she can zip down and a pair of combat boots. That's it. No stupid penis knife, no fucking lightning shooting, no jump scares, no stupid Photoshop monster. None of that. The character is scary or threatening because of the writing, not because of some stupid gimmicky crap. Just like Sans and Asgore, which I'll commend him for that. You're never going to feel like you're in danger or that something's going wrong with Sans and Asgore because they have some stupid video effect. It's because of how they're written and what they do. To be cool, these characters just do such small little minute things. I mean, really, all Asgore does to make his design more threatening is tilt his head down and pull out his weapon. He does not have a dick knife. He does not have 5 horn tentacles coming out of his back. He doesn't have 86 eyes and a skull for a face. His nose doesn't melt off. He doesn't have a dick spear. He doesn't have any of this crap. He's threatening because of his personality and because of what he does, not because of some gimmicky shit. It's like Darth Maul. Does anybody from the actual movie? I don't give a shit about your extended universe crap from the actual first Star Wars movie. Did anybody like Darth Maul for any reason other than that he had a cool lightsaber? Fucking no, nobody liked the personality of Darth Maul. Darth Maul didn't have any fucking personality. He just had a cool lightsaber. Does anybody think Flowey's actually scary? No, nobody actually thinks Flowey's scary, and if you are, you need to get a grip. He's only scary because he has some stupid fucking graphics and a goddamn audio track. No amount of stupid, creepy smiles is gonna make me care about Flowey, okay? I'm just saying. However, at the very least, Flowey has a cool, fight, if you can call it a fight. It's not really a fight, because I don't think you can lose unless you just quit the game, and you kinda know that, so there's not really that much tension. But it's a cool sequence. It's a cool cutscene, you know? It's a cool thing that happens, a cool story development plot device, whatever you want to call it. The coolest thing about it is that it fucks with the game and it makes it crash. That's neat, alright? That's cool. Then finally, after you defeat Flowey, you get the choice of either killing or sparing him. Remember what I said about every major boss or character in this game was likable? Well, that also extends to the monsters in this game. Stuff like Final Frogget, or Night Knight, or Heat's Flamesman. All these characters, usually they have something more than just rear evil, right? Some monsters literally just want a hug, and some of them just don't want to be picked on. They're all endearing, for the most part, they're all endearing characters, and you like them. You spare them because you like the character. That's why I started sparing monsters, was because I thought, well, maybe I should kill these guys. They're not so bad if you get to know them a little bit. That's why I started sparing them in my first run. That's why I'm sparing them here. It was a rational decision I made to spare these monsters on the basis that most of them were not that bad. Only like a couple were even that bad, and I spared them out of like pity. And even towards the end of the game, almost every monster gets a chance to talk to you and reveal a little bit more about themselves as a character. So it's even weird calling these things monsters, because they're really not monsters. They're like people of their own sorts. They all have different flaws or just little bits of character to them. Washa was a clean freak. Aaron likes his muscles. Would you kill somebody for either of these things? I wouldn't. I probably wouldn't if I was walking down the street and some guy with no shirt went around trying to clean cars and some skinny dude was working out at the gym and he cared about his muscles. You know, I wouldn't care, right? I wouldn't care. At most, I would silently judge him, because I'm a prick. I would, however, kill somebody for attempting to kill me, going around saying he's going to kill everybody and that everyone in the world needs to die. Not only that, but we know he's evil because he also just straight up killed somebody in front of us and then tried to kill us again. If some crazy person ran at you with a knife, screaming about how everyone in the world had to die, and then he killed someone in front of you and you kicked him in the chest and you got the knife, would you stab them? I would stab them, yeah. Like, why wouldn't you? They're attacking you. They're evil. They are explicitly evil. They relish being evil. Not only that, but in the final moments, in Flowey's final moments as a character, all he talks about is how if you don't kill him, he'll kill you and everyone you love. So yeah, fuck this guy. I'm putting the fucking screws to this. Kill him! Then after all that, the game has the gall to shunt you out of the good ending for killing someone, even if it's Flowey. Undertale has a subtext of morality to it, right? It asks the question, is killing all the monsters you killed in RPGs, all the senseless grinding and shit like that, a good thing, right? The problem with morality is that Undertale does it in an incredibly binary way. It's did you kill somebody or did you not? Because apparently in the Undertale world, killing people is never in any way a good thing or justified at all. It is always bad. And that is simply not how morality works, I'm sorry. Like, morality is subjective. That's why games suck with morality right now. It's because we usually do it through a binary thing. We do it, did you do stuff bad, did you do stuff good? But what defines good and bad, right? Where there's no such thing as renegade or paragon, because it's all just interpretation. It's based on what you personally think. That's why something like Fallout's karma system doesn't work, and that's why this ending doesn't work with Flowey. If you saw on the news, mass stabber gets shot in back, would you consider the shooter some kind of immoral monster who killed somebody, or would you say, oh wow, they killed someone who was hurting people, good job? Unless the stabber is stabbing bank robbers, I'm going with the latter. Not Undertale, though. Undertale thinks it's bad to kill anybody at all. Not only that, but it expects you as the player to allow Flowey, to give Flowey a chance, to expect Flowey to be able to change as a person, despite all that he's done, and the fact that he's still doing all that he's done up until the very last seconds of the game. They expect you to actually think that he's in any way redeemable, but they also don't allow you to change as a person, and don't say that anything you do that could be considered evil is ever good. You could do what I did at the beginning of the game and kill one fucking frog and Toriel, and you would never be able to redeem yourself. You always get the bad ending. And as much as I love the genocide and pacifist runs in what they are, the stories that are told, and the insane atmosphere of the genocide run, which is very almost realistic and eerie, the way that the morality of this game works is so stupid and skewed that it just doesn't work in my opinion. I'm sorry, it just does not work. And the worst part about this is, in both the genocide and the pacifist runs, Flowey's more redeemable. It's insane. In the genocide run, he's actually scared of the player and fears for his life and tries to run away from you. And in the pacifist ending, he returns more into his initial form of Azrael, and he has like a little violent outburst where he's trying to just get you away from them, and he looks scared and frightened by you. He acts like a child, like one who desperately needs love and help and security. Not in the neutral run, though. In the neutral run, he's just Hitler. And I know what you're about to say, too, alright? I know what you're about to say. You're about to say, but MisterCaption, Undertale's the kind of game you're supposed to repeat. But here's the things. I don't have to repeat the game at all to get a decent understanding of any of the other major characters and to like them. Not only that, but Chara, who is basically just Toby Fox talking to the player, will chastise you in the genocide run for resetting the game, for recreating and destroying the world. He says it's a sick perversion. So unless you already know going into the son of a bitch that you shouldn't touch anybody, which defeats the purpose of the message about not killing monsters, which you should know until you go into it, you get fucked with a bad ending, and you're chastised for going back and trying to get a better one. And getting the better one is repetitive, and it's grindy, and god damn! Basically, the ending to Undertale fucking disappointed me, and I don't like it. Not the endings themselves, mind you. The endings themselves can be cool. The true ending to this game is great, it's satisfying, it's endearing, it's what I would end the game on, alright? But all this other shit is so boring, and it's so contradictory, and I don't like it. This is my review. Fuck you. I don't like it. You can cry in the comments section. So, finally, we're here at the end of this review. In conclusion, I think Undertale's good, don't get me wrong. I've said a lot of shit about Undertale. I said a lot of good stuff too. I like Undertale. It does some things that more games just need to do. They just do. Like, Undertale is a good example. I'm so glad Undertale got famous, because hopefully future game designers and indie games will start using some of the things that Undertale has done. They'll start borrowing from this design philosophy. However, I don't think Undertale's revolutionary. I don't think it's the best game ever world. I would say it's more like a remindary. A reminder that we should do this kind of stuff in games, because this is the first game to ever do this stuff, right? But it is the first one that's, I think, gotten to this much critical acclaim and has this much of a cult community, and it's so famous that you just can't ignore it. And I certainly think it will influence very short future indie game design, because you know, there are going to be some stupid indie developers who try to steal some stuff from Undertale that wasn't, like, exactly the point of what they were supposed to steal, right? You're going to see some game come out, oh, your saves affect each other, or some stupid crap like that. Incoming skeleton RPG fucking 2015. If Undertale's job, however, like, seriously, if Undertale's job was just to be a good game, it has succeeded and then some. See, the thing I like about Undertale isn't the skeletons or the jokes or any of that crap. It's the fact that it was made from a true passion and understanding of gaming and for gaming. It's obviously something Toby Fox wanted to make, and it shows. Because every part of this game is just dripping with quality. Everything about it works. Everything about it is at least mostly fleshed out. There's an obvious amount of just love put into this game, and that's why I like it, because it feels like a genuine experience. It feels like the person who made this loved their game and wanted to give the people a good game to play. Even Toby Fox himself said that all Undertale's job was, at least to him, was to impact people's lives in a positive way, and it has achieved that goal, and then some. It's a good game. I would probably put it on my top 10, maybe more towards the bottom of my top 10 games of 2015, but I don't think it's perfect. And a lot of people love it unconditionally, and they think it's all super perfect, and I can understand that, but I don't, and it's my channel, fuck you. So all in all, it's a good job. Games like this just aren't made this way anymore. Games like this don't come out all that often. Over the last few years, a lot of what gets popular in gaming is just the same crap that gets pushed on you by big AAA companies, or it's just more traditional games, or something like that. Good games have been coming out recently, but Undertale is one of the first games of recent memory that has actually kind of tried something else. They've done something different, something that's not done very often. And it succeeds in being a good game, a fantastic just experience to have, and something that gets you thinking, maybe. It's a game that I probably won't forget, most likely because I spent way too much time recording it, but also because it's just a good experience. And the best part about Undertale is that it isn't something that is extensively long or anything. You can play Undertale for 7 hours and get a good experience out of it, and that's another good strength of Undertale. It's like Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons. It's quick, but for what it has a lot of just pure, good quality stuff. There's no, like, crafting or any stupid shit or any gateways to stuff in this. It's a lot of just game. If I were to say anything about Undertale, it's that good things can come in small packages. Big things, big good things can come in small packages. Not perfect things, though. Everything is flawed, but Undertale is less flawed than most other stuff. Thank you for watching this video, and a special thank you to anybody who actually stuck through the entire video. Oh, and anybody who told Undyne Anime was real, fuck you. You're a bitch.